Hello and welcome to the Art Museum of West Virginia University's Museum from Home series. In the last two installments, you've seen special editions featuring some of our outstanding seniors who will soon be embarking on new and exciting adventures. They have nicely rounded out our virtual offerings for the semester. But today, I'm back and excited to transition us to summer. Of course, summer begins in many different ways. As an academic art museum used to the rhythms of the university calendar, we can officially say that summer starts now. But others may wait for Memorial Day, or later still, the solstice on June 20th. However you mark the change of the season, there is a distinct change of mood and energy as the days grow longer and warmer. Today we are going to look at a work of art that conveys a particular summer mood and setting. It is called Summer Solstice Morning by Mark Messersmith. Let's take a look now. There's a lot to take in. This piece is 72 inches by 84 inches, or 6 feet by 7 feet. It takes up the entirety of one of our modular gallery walls. It is also a mixed media piece. Mixed media means that more than one material is used to make the work of art. Here, the primary media is oil paint on canvas. But as you can see, there is also a wooden ladder that protrudes from the front of the painting, a moth floating on a wire, a mosaic in the form of an alligator on top, and a box mounted along the base containing several three-dimensional objects, including a canoe oar. We're going to spend some time on these objects, but before we do, let's take a moment to focus on the painting itself. How would you describe the setting? What kinds of figures do you see? Both human and animal. How does Messersmith use light in the painting? We can see that the setting is a body of water filled with dense trees and plants. Birds and moths fly in all directions. In the foreground, there are two men in a boat. They are depicted largely in shadow, although each is wearing a bright headlamp. There is a swath of light reflecting off the water behind them. Its source, rays of sun that emanate from the center top of the canvas. What is your response to this composition? What is the mood? For you, does darkness or light predominate? Does it seem hopeful and bright or foreboding? There's no correct answer, but a look at some of the details might help us understand some of Messersmith's intention. So let's return to the men in the boat. Can you make out what is in the boat with them? That's right, it's an alligator. Now, if you look closely, you can see the men are holding the alligator and that its mouth is bound. So could these men perhaps be hunting gators? Is the animal in the boat their trophy for the day? Now, if we zoom in even more, we can see something else. Can you make out that tiny alligator next to the man's hand? It looks harmless, but in reality, we can see a tiny drop of blood coming from the man's finger. This little baby is biting back, perhaps defending its mother who has been captured. The alligator is indicative of some larger messages within Messersmith's work. In his artist statement, he says he is concerned with wild creatures that move within the shrinking natural Florida environs they manage to inhabit, trying to survive the persistent pressure and chaos of our human, self-concerned lives. He goes on to say that his work is not an indictment of hunting or development, but rather a prompt to viewers towards stewardship of the natural environment. Messersmith shows the challenges of an environmental stewardship in other ways. If we look in the background of the piece, we can see a raised highway with a logging truck zipping by. It seems out of place in this otherwise wild setting, but shows how closely human ecosystems abut natural ecosystems, especially in Messersmith's home state of Florida. The beauty of the light on the water is tempered by human intervention. There is danger in the swamp, but the people might be just as menacing as the gators. Messersmith continues these themes in the three-dimensional objects he incorporates. If you look closely at the alligator on top, you can see there is a human skeleton in its belly, a reverse of the image below with the hunters as the victors. The green Luna moth, which appears multiple times in the composition, is an elusive creature found in the eastern United States during warm weather months. It has a short adult lifespan and is only seen in this fully winged form for about a week. It flies by night, and human glimpses are considered lucky, both due to its nocturnal schedule and its short lifespan. Why do you think Messersmith has included so many Luna moths? What do you think they could symbolize? If you like, take a few moments and do some Luna moth research. What do their big, green, beautiful wings make you think of? How would you feel if you were lucky enough to see one in person? In addition to painted moths and a dangling ornament in the front of the painting, there's a moth down here in the lower section. Let's talk about this for a moment. Messersmith calls this portion of the piece a Predella Box. In art history, a predella is a panel that appears along the bottom of an altar piece, often depicting scenes related to the main panel of the altar. So by calling this piece a predella, Messersmith is connecting his work to that of medieval and Renaissance religious painters. Although in his piece, the subject is not the lives of saints, but again, the interaction of humans and animals in the environs of his home state of Florida. In addition to the Luna moth, what do you see in Messersmith's Predella Box? How does it relate to the themes and objects in the main painting? For today, we are going to do an activity where we make our own small diorama boxes from items we can find around the house. If you want to or are able, you can give your box a theme related to Messersmith, such as summertime, the environment, or where I live. For my box, I'm going to try to incorporate a few of those ideas. Since it's warming up here in West Virginia, I'm going to place some green maple leaves from the big tree in my backyard. And this little red glass cardinal, which reminds me of the one I've been seeing at the bird feeder. Here's my daughter's stuffed black bear that we got on a trip to Canaan Valley State Park. And a deer figurine, because deer are both abundant in the woods here, but also call to mind the issues of hunting and food chains that appear in Messersmith's work. I've never seen a Luna moth, but the Mothman is a popular folk legend from here in our state, so I want to include my Mothman mug. And finally, I have these little pieces of coal. Like the logging trucks in Messersmith's piece, they symbolize the ways that humans have impacted the landscape in West Virginia and the complexity of environmental stewardship. And there you have it. Don't worry if you can't find objects that fit these themes. Just have fun making a diorama from found objects. And if you want to get ambitious, you can even make a painting that connects to the objects in your box, building on the idea of a predella. Once you have your box put together, share it with someone, either a person in your home or someone you interact with online. You can ask them some of the same questions we have asked about the Messersmith piece. What objects do they see? How do they interact? What mood do they create? And what associations do they call to mind? We hope you enjoy this creative activity as a start to your summer. Before signing off, I'd like to add a small note about Museum from Home and the changing of the seasons. Summer is traditionally a time when we at the Art Museum plan, research, and prepare for the year ahead. And while this spring has looked like no other, we still have much work to do to ensure that we can support WVU's faculty, staff, and students in this most unusual of times. Therefore, you might see fewer videos over the coming months, but rest assured, we are dreaming up new ways to connect with you. So make sure that you are following us on social media, our mailing lists, and our website for more virtual offerings in a variety of formats. We look forward to seeing and hearing from you soon.